Hey guys, welcome back to another video where we will be looking at AgilePoint connector for Stripe. Stripe is a financial technology company that provides online payment processing services. With Stripe, businesses can integrate payment processing functionality into their websites or applications, enabling them to accept credit card payments, digital wallet payments, and even localized payment methods from customers all around the world. It also supports management of customers, products, invoices, etc., which are tied to the payment processing. Let's look at this connector in action. So I'm in my AgilePoint portal right now, and the first step would be to create an access token to connect to Stripe. Now, an access token can be created at a global level and shared across applications, or I can create an access token at an app level and restrict it to be used within an application. In my case, I'm going to create a global level access token. So I'm going to go to Manage, App Builder, Global Access Token. Now I already have a Stripe token created over here, but I'm going to show you that from scratch. So I'm going to click on Add Token, search for Stripe, select it, click Next, give it a nice looking name, and it is going to ask me to provide an API key. Now, in order to receive the API key, what you can do is you can go to Stripe, click on Developers, API keys. Now you can create a restricted API key if you want. A restricted API key would be one where you can specify the scope on a per object basis. So for example, I can say whether a person having this key can read information about the customer or write information of the customer, and similarly for products. Or you can use the secret key which has already been created for you. This is the master secret key. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Click on it once more, it gets copied. Go back to Manage, paste the key, and click Test Connection. The connection is successful. I can go ahead and click Save. However, in my case, I have already created the connection, so I'm going to cancel this out. Next, I'm going to click on App Builder, Recent Apps. I've already created a test application for Stripe, so I'm going to drill down into that. Open the corresponding process model. What you will notice over here is there is a dedicated activity group for Stripe, which has around 20 activities which are already present. There is a set of activities for managing customers, products, invoices, payments, drafts, and deleting the corresponding objects as well. I'm going to show you the configuration of each one of them. So my sample process actually uses each of those activities. So I'm going to go ahead and submit a form. On this form, I'm going to collect some of the customer information. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a customer. So let's open this one. Give it a nice looking name. Select your connection to Stripe which you created in Manage Center. Provide a request mapping. On the left hand side, what you see is the AgilePoint schema, which is the forms and process variable. And on the right hand side, you see the Stripe customer schema. So you can just provide the mapping over here. And when the customer is created, it would return back the customer ID, which we can store in a local variable called customer ID in this case. Next, I'm going to have a form where I'm going to update some of the customer information like address or tax status. And then I'm going to invoke the update customer activity. Again, give it a name. Connect to Stripe. Now in this case, I'm going to specify which customer's information I want to update. So remember in the previous step, I captured the customer ID. So I'm going to map it over here. And then I'm going to provide a mapping of all the fields which I want to update within Stripe. Next, I'm going to query the customer. Again, connect to Stripe. Now, while querying, it provides me multiple options. I can query by customer ID, in which case I'm going to ask you to provide customer ID over here. And then I can specify the mapping of all the information which I want to capture back in AgilePoint. So on the left hand side in this case, what you see is the Stripe schema. On the right hand side, you see the AgilePoint schema. Now you can fetch multiple customers as well at a time, you can go to filter condition. You can either enter your filter condition manually, or you can build a filter condition using a quick wizard. There are certain fields which are available over here and certain operators which are supported. So you can build your queries over here using an AND or logic. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. Now next I'm going to show you the results of the customer being retrieved on the form. After that, we are going to go ahead and create a product. We'll enter the product information over here. Next, we are going to invoke the create product activity, connect to Stripe, provide the request mapping where I map product data from my form into product entity in Stripe. And then when the product is inserted into Stripe, it returns me back a product ID, which will be captured in the product ID variable. Next, I'm going to have a form where I'm going to update some of the product information and invoke update product activity, connect to Stripe, provide the product ID which needs to be updated, and provide the mapping. Similarly, I can query the product, very similar to query customers. In this case, again, you're going to connect to Stripe. You can either query based on product ID, or you can provide your own filter condition to retrieve multiple products. In my case, I'm going to use product ID. So that's what I have mapped over here from previous step. And then I just map the response schema over here. On the left hand side, you see the product information. Right hand side is the AgilePoint schema, which I would display on a form. Next, I'm going to go ahead and create an invoice. I'll have a form where I'm going to enter some invoice detail. The first activity I'm going to invoke in this swim lane is create invoice. It would be pretty similar. Connect to Stripe, provide the request mapping where I'm going to specify mapping between my form and process schema against the invoice entity schema in Stripe. Now in this case, there is additional configuration. You can specify payment collection mechanism. You can either decide to auto charge customer as soon as the invoice is created and a Stripe balance can be used, or you can say request payment. You can specify the due date, and if you select email invoice to customer, the invoice is mailed out to customer along with the payment link, and the status of this invoice is set to open. Or you can specify do not email customer. In this case, the invoice is kept in draft status. Now, whatever the invoice ID is generated, it can be captured in a variable. Similarly, I'm going to go ahead and update the invoice. Please keep in mind, we can only update invoices which are in draft status. We're going to change some information and invoke update draft invoice activity. You can specify the invoice ID from previous step. Provide your request mapping so that it specifies what fields need to be updated. Now in this case, again, you can either change it to auto charge customer or request payment. I'm going to change it to request payment, specify the due date, and I'm going to say do not email customer. That means keep it in draft status. Next, I'm going to query the invoice. Query invoice structure is very similar to the other activities. You can see I can query invoice by ID, or I can specify my own filter condition to query multiple invoices and build the filter condition like I have done in other activities. Okay, I'm going to cancel this out. I'm going to show the retrieved invoice details on a form. Next, I'm going to check if the invoice is in draft status and we decided to finalize the invoice. We are going to invoke the finalize draft invoice activity in this case. All we have to do is connect to Stripe and provide the draft invoice ID, and that would get finalized. That means the status would be changed from draft to open. Next, we are going to download the invoice. I'm going to provide an invoice ID, and we can drag and drop the download invoice activity. In this case, I'm going to connect to Stripe, provide the invoice ID which needs to be downloaded, specify a file name which needs to be used, and I have to also specify where this file would be saved. In my case, I've selected Google Drive. I have a folder called Stripe Invoice and I want it to be stored over there, and I can specify my override rules. Next, we are going to generate a payment link. So we are going to enter some information of some popular products so that a payment link can be generated for direct payment. We are going to use the create payment link activity, connect to Stripe, specify the request mapping. On the left hand side, you see the AgilePoint schema where I have entered the data. On the right hand side, you see the payment link entity schema from Stripe. And once the payment link is created, the payment link ID can be stored in a variable, so is the payment link URL. I'm going to also update the payment link. Now only certain information can be updated in a payment link, which you'll see on the form. And I'm going to invoke the update payment link activity. Again, connect to Stripe, specify the payment link ID which needs to be updated, specify which field needs to be updated, map it to the Stripe schema over here, and you can store the updated link URL over here in a different variable. Now next, I'm going to query some payment links. Now at this point, Stripe only supports querying payment link based on ID. It doesn't support creating your own custom query. So I've used payment link ID which was created in the previous step and specify the response schema. There's another activity which is called get payment link products. So in previous case, I got the details of the payment link. Now I'm going to get details of the products which are included in this payment. So you can again specify the payment link ID and map the schema back to the form and process variables and show it on the form. Finally, I'll start cleaning up. The first activity I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate the payment link. All I need to specify is the Stripe connection and the payment link ID. Next, I'm going to ask for the draft invoice ID and I'm going to delete that. So next activity is delete draft invoice. Connect to Stripe and provide the draft invoice ID. Next, I'm going to archive the product which was earlier created. Going to connect to Stripe and just provide the product ID which was created earlier in the demo. Similarly, I'm going to delete the customer. I'm going to connect to Stripe, specify the customer ID which will be deleted from the system. Now, in addition to this, there is one more activity which is available, which is called send invoice, which I have not used in my application. This activity can only be used in a paid subscription. The subscription I'm using for my demo is a trial edition. For this activity to be used, you need to specify your bank information, which needs to be verified, and it would actually go ahead and send the invoice to customer. So in order to use this, you have to connect to Stripe and provide the invoice ID, which needs to be mailed out to the customer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Work Center, My Apps. I'm going to open the Stripe demo form. I've put an autofill information button to save time, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. The customer I'm going to create is called David Warner. And the information is there is some billing information which I have specified. Shipping details is same as the billing details, and I have provided some tax information for this user. I'm going to initially say tax status is taxable, and I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Now at this point, a process has been kicked off. If I go to inbox, tasks, I can see there is a process running. I'm going to go ahead and open the process viewer. I'm going to pop it out in a new tab. Now typically I could have worked off the Kanban view, but I'm going to work off the process viewer so that you can follow the steps. Now for sake of demo, I have made myself participant of each and every activity so that I don't have to log in and log out. So as you can see, the form was submitted and a customer has been created. So if I go to my Stripe account over here, customers, I can see David Warner account has been created. If I drill down, it shows the address is 987 and it is taxable right now. I'm going to drill down into the next activity, open the form. I'm going to change the address to 986 and make it a tax exempt account and go ahead and click submit. Now the customer information has been updated. So if I go back to Stripe, refresh the page, you can see the address is now 986 and the tax status is exempt. In the meantime, it has gone ahead and queried customer information, which I'll show on a separate form. So I'm going to open it. It got all this information from Stripe, including my shipping details, billing details, my invoice prefix, which is unique for each customer, and the next invoice sequence. So it has queried all the information. I'm going to go ahead and move the business process forward. Next, we're going to work on the product. I'm going to open the form. I'm going to use autofill information button to fill some information. So I'm going to create a printer's record. It's called HP printer. There's an image URL, some description. This is a one-time price type. It's currently priced at $88. And there are a couple of properties for this printer which has been specified. I can specify as many properties as I want. One is called compatibility, another one is called connectivity. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. So it tells me that the product has been created. So if I go back to Stripe, products, I can see the product has been created over here. If I drill down, I can see it is $88. Description is there, the one which I specified, and also it carried over all the metadata I specified. Now next, I'm going to go ahead and update the product. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add one more property. Say this is a multicolor printer. For statement descriptor, I'm going to just copy and paste HP printer, and I'm going to say unit label is per unit. Go ahead and click submit. If I go back, refresh the page, you can see that the custom unit label now is appearing, statement descriptor is appearing, and also the third metadata property multicolor is appearing over here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and show you the results of the product query activity. I'm going to drill down, open it, and it shows me the information which was retrieved from Stripe. I'm going to go ahead and move the process forward. Now next we are going to work on invoice. So I'm going to open the form. Click on autofill information. Now in this case I have to specify a product ID. I could have created it as a drop down where I would have shown the display name and then the ID would have been sitting behind it. In my case I just typed the ID here along with the quantity, memo, footer, and some invoice details like refund policy and shipping method. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. It went ahead and created an invoice. So if I go back to Stripe again, go to billing, invoices, I can see there is an invoice in draft status. I can drill down and I can see this has been sent to David Warner, the customer I created just now. And it has two items, a laptop and an iPhone. And you can see the two custom fields over here. Now we are going to go ahead and update the invoice. Now one thing you'll notice before I do that is that this invoice is right now in a draft status. I'm going to go ahead and update it. Open the form. I'm going to increase the quantity of laptop from 1 to 2. I'm going to specify a due date, which will be 23rd for the payment of this invoice. Now if I go back, click refresh. Now you can see the quantity has been updated to 2 and the due date has been specified as well in this case. Now in the meantime, it has queried the invoice as well, and we'll show the results on a form quickly. It shows me the results. It fed customer detail, email, billing address, shipping address, and also the invoice details. Here I'm showing the product names over here and the amount. Now I'm going to say that we will go ahead and finalize the invoice. Remember, it is currently in draft status. So it has finalized the invoice. If I go back, refresh, right now if you see it was in draft status. Now the status has been changed to open. Next, we are going to download an invoice. I'm going to open the form. It's asking me to provide an invoice name. So I'll go back and provide the invoice name and go ahead and click submit. And the download invoice activity has been executed. I'm going to go to Google Drive in my other browser window over here. Go to that Stripe invoice folder and you can see that the invoice has been downloaded. Let's go back to our previous browser window. I'm going to open the next form and we'll work on the payment link. Now I can quickly create a direct payment link for any of the popular products. I'm going to go ahead and say autofill information for a couple of products. And I can specify whether I want customer to provide the address, phone number, whether I allow them to enter any promotion codes, allow business customers to provide their tax IDs, and save payment details for future use. I can also enter a thank you message on the confirmation page. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. So a payment link has been created. If I go back to Stripe, payments, you can see that the payment link has been created for David Warner. We are going to drill down, go to payment links, copy it. Right now it is in active status and open it in another browser tab. And as you can see, it shows me the details. I can enter the promotion code and it's also giving me option to capture the customer detail. Now next we are going to go back and update the payment link. Now once the payment has been created, I cannot update the payment product ID, but I can update the quantity. I'm going to go ahead and update the quantity over here and I'll say do not allow them to enter promotion codes. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. I'll go back to Stripe, refresh the page, copy the latest payment link, open it in a new browser tab. Now you see the promotion code has gone and the quantity has been changed to 2. We'll go back to process monitor. In the meantime, it has retrieved the payment link information as well as the corresponding product information, which we'll show on the form. So as you can see, it is showing me the payment link information that is active right now and the corresponding product information as well. I'm going to go ahead and move the process forward. So now we start doing the cleanup. It has deactivated the payment links. If I go back, if you see right now it was active, we refresh, it has been deactivated. Next, we are going to open a form. It is asking me for a draft invoice ID which needs to be deleted. So I'm going to go back to Stripe, go to billing, invoices. draft. Select any of the draft over here, and we are going to copy the invoice ID. Go back to the form, enter it, click submit. So as you can see, the delete draft invoice activity has been executed. We go back, click refresh. That invoice is no more available. In the meantime, it has gone ahead and archived the product. So if we go back to Stripe, products, the HP printer is no more there in the products list. It has been archived. Similarly, if you see, it has also gone ahead and deleted the customer called David Warner. So if I go back, go to customers, David Warner no more appears in the list. So with this, we come to the end of this demo. As you see, we now have a connector for Stripe with which you can bring in Stripe within a larger business process. The integration is quite comprehensive with more than 20 activities available out of the box. Thanks a lot for your time.